Emily had been carrying the question inside her for so long that it almost felt like part of her heartbeat. It followed her through ordinary days during morning coffee, while answering emails at work, and in the quiet evenings when she and her husband sat side by side but somehow far apart. Nothing was clearly wrong in her marriage to Daniel. There were no loud arguments, no broken trust, no dramatic moments. From the outside, their life in Portland looked calm and successful. They had steady jobs, a warm home, and years of shared memories. Yet Emily felt a gentle emptiness growing between them, something invisible but impossible to ignore. 12 years earlier, their relationship had been full of curiosity. They used to stay awake talking about dreams, laughing at small jokes, and planning futures that felt exciting and unpredictable. Daniel used to notice everything about her: when she changed her hairstyle, when she felt nervous, when she needed reassurance without saying a word. Somewhere along the years, life became organized and responsible. Conversations turned into schedules. Romance slowly changed into routine. Emily understood that change was natural, but lately she wondered if comfort had quietly replaced connection. That evening, rain fell softly outside their home, tapping against the kitchen windows like a steady reminder of time passing. Daniel stood at the stove cooking pasta, humming absent-mindedly. He looked peaceful, completely relaxed in the rhythm of everyday life. Emily watched him from the dining table, studying the familiar movements she once found charming. She loved him deeply. That had never changed, but she realized she missed feeling seen by him. She missed feeling new to him. "Long day?" Daniel asked, glancing at her with a warm but casual smile. "Yeah," she said, forcing a small smile back. "Just tired." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. She was tired of silence, tired of pretending everything felt complete when something inside her kept asking for more. During dinner, they talked about normal things: a coworker's promotion, a neighbor's new dog, weekend errands. Their conversation flowed easily, but stayed safely on the surface. Emily noticed how natural it had become for both of them to avoid deeper topics. Years ago, they would have talked about fears, goals, or strange thoughts that crossed their minds. Now they exchanged information, not feelings. After dinner, they moved to the living room, each holding a mug of tea. The lamp cast a soft yellow glow, making the room feel calm and secure. Daniel scrolled briefly through his phone before setting it aside, completely comfortable in the quiet. Emily, however, felt her heart racing. The question pressed against her chest again, stronger than before. She knew if she stayed silent tonight, she might never speak at all. She placed her mug down carefully. "Daniel," she said, her voice gentle but serious, "can I ask you something?" He looked up immediately, sensing the difference in her tone. "Of course. What's going on?" Her hands tightened together. For a moment she considered changing the subject, protecting the peace they had built. But she also knew peace without honesty wasn't real peace. "Are you happy with us?" she asked. The words hung in the air. Daniel blinked, surprised. "That's a big question." "I know," she said quietly. He leaned back, thinking carefully. Yeah, we're doing well. We don't fight much. Life is stable." He shrugged slightly. "Isn't that what people hope for?" Emily nodded slowly, though his answer made her chest ache. Stability had once been their goal, but now she wondered if they had mistaken stability for closeness. "I think we're good partners," she said softly. "But sometimes I feel like we stopped really knowing each other." Daniel frowned, confusion replacing his relaxed expression. "What do you mean?" She searched for simple words, afraid of sounding ungrateful. "I feel like we live next to each other instead of with each other. We handle life well, but I miss feeling connected." Daniel looked down at his hands, clearly trying to understand. "I didn't realize you felt that way." "I didn't fully realize it either," she admitted. "It just grew slowly." Outside, rain fell harder, filling the silence between them. "I'm not blaming you," she added quickly. "I think we both got comfortable. We stopped asking questions. We stopped being curious about each other." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Relationships change, Emily. That's normal." "I know." she said. "But change doesn't have to mean distance." Her voice trembled slightly, but she continued. "I miss how we used to look forward to talking. I miss feeling like we were discovering each other all the time." Daniel stood and walked toward the window, processing her words. Emily watched him, wondering if she had gone too far. She wasn't asking for a dramatic change or impossible romance, only awareness, only effort. Still, honesty felt risky after years of calm routine. "Are you unhappy with me?" he asked without turning around. The question hurt more than she expected. "No," she said gently. "I'm afraid of losing us quietly. That's different." He remained silent, watching raindrops slide down the glass. Emily felt tears gather but held them back. She had promised herself this conversation would come from love, not frustration. She wanted understanding, not conflict. After a long pause, she spoke again, her voice softer. "What if we started choosing each other again? Not because we have to, but because we want to." Daniel turned slightly. "Choosing each other how?" "By being honest," she said. "By spending real time together. By learning who we've become instead of assuming we already know." She hesitated before adding the truth she had practiced saying for weeks. "I want to fall in love with my husband again." The vulnerability in her words changed the atmosphere instantly. Daniel's expression softened, but uncertainty remained in his eyes. He sat back down slowly, as if realizing the conversation mattered more than he first thought. "I thought things were fine," he said quietly. "I thought providing stability meant I was doing my part." "You are," Emily assured him. "You've always been kind and dependable. That's not the problem. I just think love needs attention, not just time." Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing her perspective. For the first time that evening, he looked directly at her, not casually, but thoughtfully, as if noticing details he had overlooked. "I didn't know you felt lonely," he admitted. Emily's voice softened. "I didn't know how to say it." They sat together in silence, but it felt different now, heavier, more honest. Neither of them reached for distractions. The conversation had opened something neither could close quickly. Finally, Daniel spoke again. "I need to think about this. Not because I don't care, but because I want to understand what you're asking." Emily nodded, though uncertainty filled her chest. She had hoped for reassurance, but she respected his honesty. Real change couldn't be rushed. That night felt unfamiliar. They prepared for bed quietly, moving around each other with gentle awareness. The distance between them wasn't cold. It was thoughtful, like space created for reflection. Lying in the dark, Emily stared at the ceiling, replaying every word she had said. Fear crept in. What if she had created doubt where none existed before? What if bravery had risked the comfort they shared? Beside her, Daniel remained awake longer than usual. She could sense it in his breathing. Neither spoke, but both were thinking about the same thing, whether their marriage was stronger than routine. Emily realized something important as sleep slowly approached. Love wasn't only about harmony. Sometimes love required courage, even when courage felt uncomfortable. The question she had asked could change everything. It might bring them closer, or it might reveal truths they had avoided for years. Either way, silence was no longer possible. And as rain continued through the night, washing the city streets clean, Emily understood that their marriage had reached a turning point. Because in the morning, Daniel would wake up with an answer, one that would begin reshaping their relationship in ways neither of them expected. Emily woke slowly, reaching across the bed out of habit, expecting to feel Daniel beside her. Her hand met cold sheets instead. She opened her eyes, confused by the quiet morning light filling the room. For a brief second, worry tightened her chest. Memories of their conversation the night before rushed back, every word replaying with sharp clarity. Had she pushed too hard? Had honesty created distance instead of healing? She sat up, listening carefully. Soft sounds came from the kitchen movement. Dishes, the hum of the coffee machine. Relief mixed with nervous anticipation. She wrapped a sweater around herself and walked down the hallway, unsure of what waited for her. Daniel stood at the kitchen counter dressed neatly, far more prepared than usual for a weekday morning. 2 cups of coffee rested on the table. He looked up when she entered, his expression calm but thoughtful, like someone who had spent hours deciding something important. "Good morning," he said gently. Emily studied him, searching his face for clues. "Morning." He handed her a mug. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from sincerity. "I took the day off work," he said. She blinked in surprise. Daniel rarely missed work unless absolutely necessary. "You did? Is everything okay?" He nodded. "Yeah, I just needed time to think. And I didn't want another normal day after what you said last night." Emily felt her heartbeat quicken. She sat across from him, unsure whether to feel hopeful or afraid. "I kept thinking about your question," he continued, "about whether I'm happy with us." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I realized I answered too quickly. I talked about stability because that's what I focused on for years. Providing, planning, making sure life ran smoothly." He looked at her directly. "But I never stopped to ask if we were still emotionally close." Emily listened quietly, afraid to interrupt the moment. Daniel exhaled slowly. "Somewhere along the way, I started believing love meant reaching a safe place and staying there. Like once we built a stable life, the work was done." He gave a small, honest smile. "I didn't notice we stopped growing." His honesty softened something inside her. She hadn't wanted blame. She had wanted awareness. Now she could see it forming in front of her. "So," he said, sitting straighter, "I decided we shouldn't just talk about change. We should try it." Emily tilted her head slightly. "Try what?" Daniel smiled nervously. "Today is our first date." She stared at him, unsure she heard correctly. "Our first date." "Yeah," he said. "Not a repeat of the past. A new one." To people meeting again after 12 years. Emotion filled her eyes before she could stop it. She laughed softly, surprised by how much the gesture meant. "You're serious?" "Completely." An hour later, they walked side by side along Portland's waterfront. The sky was clear after the night's rain, and the air felt fresh, almost symbolic. At first, conversation felt awkward, like they were learning each other's rhythm again. They hesitated before speaking, unsure which version of themselves to present, the familiar partner or the curious stranger. Daniel broke the silence first. "So, what's something you've wanted to do lately but never told me?" Emily smiled at the unexpected question. "I've wanted to take a photography class." "Just for fun." He looked surprised. "Really? I didn't know that. Never mentioned it," she admitted. "I thought it sounded unnecessary." Daniel shook his head gently. "It sounds like you." The simple exchange felt refreshing. They kept walking, asking questions that hadn't been spoken in years. What made them nervous now? What did they secretly hope for in the future? What small things made their days better? Emily learned Daniel sometimes felt pressured to always appear strong and dependable. He worried that showing uncertainty might disappoint her. Daniel learned Emily didn't need perfection. She needed emotional presence. At lunch in a small cafe, Daniel leaned forward thoughtfully. "When you asked if I was happy, I realized something uncomfortable. I stopped asking you deep questions because I assumed I already knew the answers." Emily nodded. "I did the same. I stopped sharing things because I thought you were too busy." They both laughed softly at how misunderstanding could grow without conflict. Nothing dramatic had separated them, only small assumptions repeated over time. The day moved naturally. They walked through bookstores, shared stories from their early relationship, and remembered moments that once felt ordinary but now seemed precious. The more they talked, the lighter the atmosphere became. Emily noticed Daniel watching her more closely, smiling at things he might have ignored before. At one point he said quietly, "You seem different today." She raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "Brighter," he said. "Like you're letting me see parts of you again." She realized she felt the same about him. As evening approached, they sat on a bench overlooking the river. The sun reflected across the water, turning everything gold. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt peaceful instead of distant. "I was scared last night," Daniel admitted finally. "Not because you were wrong, but because I realized how easy it is to slowly drift without noticing." Emily nodded. "I was scared too. I thought maybe asking the question would hurt us." He shook his head gently. "It woke me up." Over the following weeks, their lives didn't transform instantly, but small choices began reshaping their connection. They planned weekly outings, sometimes simple walks or shared meals without distractions. Phones stayed away during dinner. Conversations became intentional again. There were difficult moments as well. Old habits tried to return. Busy schedules threatened their new routines. Once, after a stressful work week, they almost slipped back into silence. But this time, Daniel noticed first. "We're doing it again," he said gently one evening, letting routine take over. Instead of feeling criticized, Emily felt grateful. Awareness had become shared responsibility. They learned to speak earlier when something felt off instead of waiting months. Small frustrations turned into conversations rather than quiet resentment. Gradually, emotional closeness returned, not identical to their early years, but deeper, shaped by experience and understanding. One evening months later, they sat together on their porch watching the sunset. The sky shifted through shades of orange and pink while the neighborhood grew quiet. Emily rested her head on Daniel's shoulder, feeling calm in a way she hadn't felt for years. "You know," Daniel said softly, "that question you asked changed everything." She smiled faintly. "I almost didn't ask it." "I'm glad you did," he replied. "It reminded me that love isn't automatic. It's something we keep choosing." Emily thought about